Hello, everyone, and welcome to One Civil Law. And for today's story, we catch up on last night's comments by the President of the United States. As he was flying to the Super Bowl in New Orleans, he gave some comments on Air Force One. And so we can't be deprived of our opportunity to watch what the president had to say. So we're going to watch his remarks. Plus, he also answered some questions from the press aboard Air Force One. So we'll go ahead and watch that. So let's get started. All right.
America.
And we're flying right over it right now. So we thought this would be appropriate. Even bigger than the Super Bowl. This is a big thing. And almost everybody now has assented to that.
Attention on board. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could please direct your attention out the right side of the aircraft. Air Force One is currently in international waters, for the first time in history, flying over the recently renamed Gulf of America.
Based.
Please enjoy the flight, and we are now about to head westbound to Super Bowl 59.
Wow, he did that well. That's a good captain. He did. Isn't that nice? You know, we're about make America great again, right? That's what we care about. Okay, here we go.
Since I think this particular video cut off before it announced what he's signing a declaration that declared the day he was signing it, so declared yesterday to be Gulf of America Day. Nice.
So this is a famous pen now, and we'll put it with something. I'll ask you to do whatever you think we should do with it, Mr. Secretary.
I need myself an official Trump branded Sharpie. I know I could go out and buy a Sharpie at a store, but it's just not the same. I need an official Trump branded Sharpie in my life. That's what I need right now.
Do you want to talk about, Doug, Secretary of the Interior, and also working with Chris Wright on extracting vast amounts of oil and gas and making our country rich? Would you like to say something?
Well, with the Gulf of America, this is a historic day. We want to thank President Trump. His executive order is what set this in motion. We signed a secretarial order as Secretary of Interior directing the U.S. Geologic Survey, who is responsible for the database, which is the Geographic Names Informational System. And so just prior to this signing, if you will, the button was pushed. It became official with this proclamation to call today Gulf of America Day. But now it's going out. As we're sitting here right now, our team is calling all the map providers, so Google Maps, Apple Maps, all the map people.
Hold on, we got to check. One second, please. No, it's still Gulf of Mexico on Google Maps. Yeah, it's still Gulf of Mexico on Google Maps. No, well, maybe later.
That change will take effect this afternoon to Gulf of America. So again, fantastic. Thank you, President Trump, for setting this all in motion with your executive order. It's an exciting, fun day, and great to do this as we're flying over the Gulf of America.
We thought it would be very appropriate. Catherine, thank you very much for being here.
So
It's
happy
been a
to be
very
here.
important part of his life. And who knows what would have happened to him without you? It might not have been good. Here you go. Okay.
Have you talked to Mexico?
He's got a large poster board behind him that says Gulf of America.
About this?
Actually, interestingly, I've never spoken to him about it. It was our call, and I have not spoken to him about. I've spoken to him about many other things.
There's something inherently funny about the fact that the sign is being held up by the Secretary of the Interior. I mean, it's not just some intern. It's the Secretary of the Interior. Wow.
But I haven't heard talk to them about this. They have never brought it up. I'm a little surprised at that, but they've never brought it up.
Sir, can you tell us about your conversation with Vladimir Putin?
I don't want to do that now. We're trying to end that war. It's a war that would have never happened if I were president. It would have never happened. But we're making progress, but I can't tell you.
You suffered a couple of court losses, Mr. President, and J.D. Vance said judges aren't allowed to control the executive power. What's your take on that?
Well, we're going to see what happens. We have a long way to go, and we're talking about fraud, waste, abuse. And when a president can't look for fraud and waste and abuse, we don't have a country anymore. So we're very disappointed with the judges that would make such a ruling. But we have a long way to go. We have to look, we have to find all of the fraud that's going on. We have tremendous fraud, tremendous waste, and tremendous abuse, and theft, by the way. And the day you're not allowed to look for theft and fraud, etc., then we don't have much of a country. So no judge should frankly be allowed to make that kind of a decision. It's a disgrace.
Mr. President, a few years ago,
Gulf of America, Canada, Greenland, Gaza, all these are very muscular foreign policy. How does this align with America first?
Because it makes us bigger, stronger, and better, and more protective. We need Greenland because of national security, international security, world peace. And we'll have to do that. Canada, we'll see what happens with Canada, but the people of Canada would be paying less than half of the tax. If you look at the tax, they're going to be paying less than half the tax. They don't pay very much for military, and the reason they don't pay much is they assume that we're going to protect them. That's not an assumption they can make, because why are we protecting another country? Now, I love the people of Canada. We have a great relationship. But if they became our 51st state, it would be the greatest thing they could ever do. It would be unbelievable. It would be a cherished state. And think of how beautiful that country would be without that artificial line running right through it. Somebody drew it many years ago with a ruler, just a line. You look at how beautiful that is, wow, it would be very exciting. But if you look at Canada, it would be cherished as a 51st state. They don't pay their share of military in NATO. They pay very little for military. They're not protected at all. And the reason is they think we're going to protect them. The other thing is we subsidize them to the tune of about $200 billion a year. If we stop doing that, if we stop allowing them to make cars through tariffs and other things, cars, trucks, etc., what they make, they're not viable as a country.
So would you agree that it's a more aggressive foreign policy than your first term? And why is that?
It's more aggressive. It's better. Why? Because I think I've had a lot of experience. And in my first term, I was fighting everybody because they were very aggressive toward me. I always said survival and taking care of the country, not necessarily in that order. But I had to take care of the country, but I had a bunch of lunatics like Pelosi and all of these people. They fought me, and we won. And, I had a lot of other things that were going on there. This time it's much more, they've lost their confidence. I think they've lost the respect of the American people with, men participating in women's sports, with open borders, with transgender for everybody, for all the things that they're doing is so bad. When you allow people to empty their jails into your country with prisoners, killers, their mental institutions and insane asylums into our country, this is what they're doing. When you allow gang members from Venezuela, but many other countries coming into our country, we're getting them all out now. They've lost their credibility, but they've also lost their confidence. So I have more time to do what I want to do. So we're making our country larger. We're making our country stronger. And in the case of Canada, if this should happen, I don't know how they can do it without us, because without the U.S., Canada really doesn't have a...
I mean, is it too much for the news people with their sound equipment to put in some sort of filter to get rid of some of the plane noise? I mean, it's just, I could probably do it myself with a little bit of tweaking of the sound levels, but is it too much to ask them to do it so that it's not so bad? Put it through a filter or something?
Country. They do almost all of their business with us, and And if we say we want our cars to be made in Detroit, with a stroke of a pen, I can do that. And other things in addition to that would not allow Canada to be a viable country.
You said you
You're
didn't
going to
want
honor first responders today, but you pardoned hundreds of people who assaulted first responders. Why did you do that?
Who?
You were going to meet with first responders today, but you pardoned people who assaulted first responders.
No, I pardoned people that were assaulted themselves. They were assaulted by our government. I pardoned J6 people who were assaulted by our government. That's who assaulted, and they were treated unfairly. There's never been a group of people in this country, outside of maybe one instance that I can think of, but I won't get into it, that were treated.
I have to say, I like Trump's answer here. It's a very good deflection of the question in a way. It's like they attacked law enforcement. No, they themselves were attacked. Now, I mean, you could obviously challenge that perception, right? I mean, there's obviously a different case to be made, but it's a very good answer to the question, actually, to be in my mind.
More horribly than the people of J6. So, no, I didn't assault. They didn't assault. They were assaulted. And what I did was a great thing for humanity. They were treated very, very unfairly. There's never been an incident like it.
Two core policy questions. On Putin again, you realize if you don't clarify that, everyone's going to assume you're talking to President Putin regularly.
Well, they can assume that.
So is it safe?
It makes sense. Well, I don't want to talk about it. And if we are talking, I don't want to tell you about the conversation. It's too early. But I do believe we're making progress. We want to stop the Ukraine-Russia war. And I want to stop it just because I hate to see all these young people being killed. The soldiers are being killed by the hundreds of thousands.
So you're starting to put together a plan for like a peace formula or some sort of resolution?
We're talking to both sides. Yeah.
Okay. And then on Japan, are you okay with having a foreign country having a controlling interest in a U.S. steel company?
Well, now let's look at this. When I came here, they were going to buy it, and Biden was going to approve it. All of a sudden, Biden didn't because he heard I wasn't going to. I don't want U.S. steel being owned by a foreign
But a
country.
controlling interest is okay?
They can have they don't have a controlling. They have an investment. All they're going to have is an investment.
Will it be a joint?
I don't mind an investment in a company, but especially U.S. Steel. U.S. Steel for 15 years was the greatest company in the world, the greatest #1 company in the world, and I'm not going to let another country buy it. We had a great meeting on that, but they are allowed to invest in it, and that's different.
Mr. President, on tariffs, sir, you've talked about reciprocal tariffs coming in this week. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And are you announcing a plan for it this week?
Yeah, I'll be announcing.
Themselves kick in this week.
I'll be announcing probably Tuesday or Wednesday at a news conference reciprocal tariffs, and very simply, it's if they charge us, we charge them. That's all.
When does it go into effect, sir?
Almost immediately, but I'll be announcing the details of it, highly detailed, and it'll be great for everybody, including the other countries. But if they are charging us 130% and we're charging them nothing, it's not going to stay that way.
This is on every country?
Every country will be reciprocal. That's right. Every country.
President, can you confirm that
It won't affect everybody because there's somewhere we have similar tariffs. But the ones that are taking advantage of the United States, we're going to have it's reciprocity, it's reciprocal. We're going to have a reciprocal tariff. But we'll have a news conference Tuesday or Wednesday.
And just on the steel question, just so I understand.
We'll also be announcing steel tariffs on Monday.
On this, tomorrow?
Monday, yeah, tomorrow.
What countries will those go on?
Everybody, steel.
Including Canada and Mexico?
Yeah,
That exemption?
any steel coming into the United States is going to have a 25% tariff.
What about aluminum, sir?
Aluminum too.
10%? What's yours?
No, 25%.
25 for aluminum.
25 for both.
And on steel, sir, are you ruling out then Nippon Steel having a 50?
And again, like, you don't necessarily have to like Trump, but I'll tell you one thing that is just nice. It's nice that the president of the United States himself is taking questions. President Trump has given more press conferences in the last 3 weeks than I think it's possible Biden gave in his entire term. And, he's answering questions, and you may not like the answers. But he's answering questions. And he's taking them impromptu, and he's telling you what he's doing. He's not like hiding the ball. He's also telling you exactly what he's doing. is like, well, I'm going to put these tariffs on. I'm going to do this. I'm going to, look over that. The only question he really kind of evaded was the question about talking with Putin, because it's not really appropriate, right? It's like, are you talking to Putin? It's like, I'm not going to tell you. We're working it out. It's a little premature. People are going to assume that you're talking to Putin then. Okay, let them assume. Let them make their assumptions, but it's premature to talk about it, but we're working on it. It's like, I respect these answers. These are all very respectable answers to me.
1% stake or higher, they won't have a majority stake.
Nobody can have a majority stake for U.S. Steel. They can for other companies, but not for U.S. Steel. I think you agree with that, Doug, right? U.S. Steel was one of our great companies, and through a lot of stupidity and bad government and also bad management of the company, it lost that luster. But it's going to gain it back, and tariffs are going to help. Tariffs are going to make it very successful again. And I think it is good management now, too. Yeah.
Sorry, sir. May I ask one, please? Can you tell me, can you confirm that you'll be meeting with MBS and Sisi of Egypt soon? Will that be at the White House?
Well, I'll be meeting with all of them numerous times, by the way, but I'll be meeting with all of them. And yeah, I think that it's a big mistake to allow people, the Palestinians or the people living in Gaza, to go back yet another time. And we don't want Hamas going back. And think of it as a big real estate site. And the United States is going to own it and will slowly, very slowly, we're in no rush, develop it. We're going to bring stability to the Middle East in a totally war-torn part.
I did not have America takes over Gaza and transforms it into a vacation destination site on my bingo card. I have to admit that one I did not have on my bingo card. It's the new Cancun. Okay. We'll see how that works, I guess. There.
Of the Middle East, a part of the Middle East that has caused tremendous problem, the Gaza Strip, and we'll own it. It's totally demolished right now. It's a demolition site. It'll be reclaimed. It'll be leveled out, fixed up. There won't be anybody there. Hamas won't be there. We'll be building through other of the very rich countries in the Middle East. They'll be building some beautiful sites for the people, for the Palestinians to live in. They'll be living in harmony and peace probably for the first time in hundreds of years.
And just to clarify, I know you don't want to tell us about your conversation with President Putin, but can you clarify whether you had that since you've been in office, or whether it happened before you became president?
I've had it. Let's just say I've had it. And I expect to have many more conversations. We have to get that war ended. It's going to end, and we have to get it ended. And we have to get it ended. So should have never happened, would have never happened if I was president.
Mr. President, a couple of years ago, your vice president said that suggested that if the Supreme Court rules in a way you don't like, just let them enforce it. Do you agree with that?
Say the last part.
The vice president suggested that if the Supreme Court rules in a way that you don't like, they can just enforce it by themselves. Do you agree with that?
I don't know even what you're talking about. Neither do you. Who are you with?
Up close, sir.
Who?
Up close.
No wonder. I thought they died. Are they still around? I haven't read them in years. I thought they died. All right, go ahead. Who else?
Well, on security clearance, you've been yanking a lot of them. Why does it make the country safer to take away the AG security clearance? And is that a form of retribution?
If there's somebody, no. If there are people that we don't respect, if there are people that we thought that were breaking the law or came very close to it in previous years, we do it. And we've done it with some people. We've done it with Biden himself. We think our country is not as safe if you gave him clearance. We don't think he knows what he's doing. And what he's done to this country is a disgrace. And what he's done in terms of allowing criminals, murderers, drug lords into our country, people from mental institutions into our country, he should be ashamed of himself.
Is that a legally valid reason?
On deportations, there's been some reporting that you've been upset that there haven't been more deportations. Can you clarify that?
I think they're doing an incredible job. It's very tough. Deportations, finding murderers is not easy. Some of them are actually very smart. They shouldn't be in our country. There wouldn't have been. We had beautiful, we just set records for closure. We have the strongest border we've had in many years since my term. But maybe even for many, many years, decades before that. They're doing an amazing job, I think. Tom Homan's doing an amazing job. Kristi Noem is doing an amazing job. But it's not easy finding murderers who know they're being looked for. But we're sending out thousands of people. We're getting rid of thousands of criminals from our country.
So, do you expect to meet him in person?
Where?
Putin. Do you anticipate meeting with him?
I would imagine I would be meeting with Putin, yes, at the right time. I think at the right time, at the appropriate time.
Gaza. The White House press secretary told us last week that you're committed to rebuilding Gaza. Steve Witkoff said that process would take 10 to 15 years. Does your commitment to rebuilding Gaza extend beyond your time in office?
I'm committed to buying and owning Gaza. As far
You want to buy Gaza, okay? What realtor do you call for that real estate deal? I don't know, man. Yeah, of all the things the president has said, the Gaza one is the most challenging. Yeah.
us rebuilding it, we may give it to other states in the Middle East to build sections of it. Other people may do it through our auspices, but we're committed to owning it, taking it, and making sure that Hamas doesn't move back. There's nothing to move back into. The place is a demolition site. It'll be
what real estate agent gets the commission on that deal? That's got to be the best day for a real estate agent ever, right? You get your cut of the Gaza deal, man. You gotta be living pretty, man. Yeah. Who pays closing costs?
The remainder will be demolished. Everything's demolished. I mean, you can't live in those buildings right now. They're very unsafe. But we'll make it into a very good site for future development by somebody. We'll let other countries develop parts of it. It'll be beautiful. People can come from all over the world and live there. But we're going to take care of the Palestinians. We're going to make sure they live beautifully and in harmony and in peace, and that they're not murdered. This has been the most dangerous site anywhere in the world to live in. Hamas has been a disaster. And by the way, I have to tell you that I watched the hostages come back today, and they look like Holocaust survivors. They were in horrible condition. They were emaciated. It looked like many years ago, the Holocaust survivors. And I don't know how much longer we can take that. When I watch that, I know we have a deal where we're supposed to get, they dribble in and keep dribbling in, but they are in really bad shape. They have been treated brutally, horribly. Even the ones that came out earlier, they were in a little bit better shape, but mentally they were treated so badly. Who could take that? At some point, we're going to lose our patience. When I see that scene that I saw today with people coming out of helicopters and airplanes that are emaciated, that look like they haven't had a meal in a month, no reason for that. And I don't know how much longer we can take it.
Do you mean you want to recast?
I don't know how long we can take it. When I watch people that were healthy people a reasonably short number of years ago, and you look at them today, they look like they've aged 25 years.
What is this? Trump wants to get rid of the penny? Not the worst idea, incidentally, to get rid of the penny. The penny costs more to produce than it's worth, and it is not. What is this?
Coverage that we are seeing President Trump putting on Truth Social just about 10 minutes ago. Take a look at this, everyone. He says, for far too long, the United States has minted pennies, which literally cost us more than 2 cents.
I think it's like 4 cents, to be honest, so he's even underestimating it.
This is so wasteful. I have instructed my Secretary of the U.S. Treasury to stop producing new pennies.
Based.
Let's rip the waste out of our great nation's budget, even if it's a penny at a time there. So, big news coming from President Trump. He wants to get rid.
We should get rid of it. That's my 2 cents on the subject. Nice, none of your business. One bonus point.
Of the penny. So you say a penny for your thoughts? Well, the thoughts are from President Trump that he wants to get rid of that penny. You know, so many times you got so much change in your pocket and you have, you know, all these dimes, nickels, but pennies, you gotta, you know.
I mean, the U.S. used to have a half cent, which we don't make anymore because it became not worth the trouble. Pennies have not been worth the trouble for some time. I think this video is a little longer, so this we'll skip around because we're obviously not going to watch the whole thing. But I think this has a before and after that the other video didn't have.
You all set? You know, we're flying over right
This
now.
one sounds like the audio was treated, so I should have just used Forbes instead of Fox. So I guess I get to yell at Fox for not treating their audio. Forbes, it sounds like, treated their audio, so less airplane noise.
Now, we're flying over a thing called the Gulf of America, and I'm signing a proclamation, and perhaps you could define that.
This is a proclamation declaring today, February 9th, 2025, as the first ever Gulf of America Day. This follows the President's executive order issuing a name change from the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America.
And we're flying right over it right now. So we thought this would be appropriate.
All right, so we saw all of that. So how far do we have to skip ahead to see what we missed?
The whole country looks like it's a fraud. It's fraud, waste, abuse, but it's a tremendous fraud. And what Elon and his group of geniuses have found is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And that's just in USAID. Soon we're going into education. No reason for that, and I don't know how much longer we can take it.
Okay, we're about here.
I don't know how long we can take it. When I watch people that were healthy people a reasonably short number of years ago, and you look at them today, they look like they've aged 25 years. They literally look like the old pictures of Holocaust survivors. The same thing. I mean, the same thing. And I don't know how long we're going to take that.
Mr. President, have you gotten some advancement in your proposals for some of the Gulf or Arab nations to take some of the Palestinian people? And if not, like, what do you think the reason is for their hesitance? Is there some very honest reason that they've even told you privately or that you think why they're hesitant to take the Palestinian people?
Why are they hesitant to take them? Because they never spoke to me. They spoke to other people. They didn't speak to me.
Wow.
When they speak to me, they're going to take them.
Is it because they think that you would not allow them to return to Gaza? Is that part of it?
They don't want to return to Gaza. If we could give them a home in a safer area, the only reason they're talking about returning to Gaza is they don't have an alternative. When they have an alternative, they don't want to return to Gaza. If they had a home that was safe, where you don't have Hamas threatening them, killing them, torturing them, they'd rather not return to Gaza, but right now Gaza is the only alternative. As far as the other regions, the only reason they maybe don't act enthusiastic is they haven't talked to me. They talk to other people, but not to me. When they talk to me, they'll be enthusiastic.
And on spending, you found some maybe questionable expenditures, or Elon Musk has
Not
found them?
some questionable. The whole country looks like it's a fraud. It's fraud, waste, abuse, but it's a tremendous fraud. And what Elon and his group of geniuses have found is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And that's just in USAID. Soon we're going into education. You'll find the same thing, but bigger. Soon we're going into the military, and you're going to find a lot of bad things.
If they actually manage to audit the Defense Department, I will be truly amazed. I mean, they've tried auditing before and not so much with our ability to audit. They've never passed an audit, and the audits take forever. I have no problems believing that there's massive waste, fraud, and abuse in the Defense Department. It'd be hard not to be. If they can actually audit the Defense Department, oh my God. I mean, you know, Shit, dude. We'll probably find $500 billion in the cushions. Holy shit.
What's happening there? You'll find it because our government has not functioned properly for many, many years, and we're going to make it function properly. We're even looking at treasuries. There could be a problem. You've been reading about that with treasuries. And that could be an interesting problem because it could be that a lot of those things don't count. In other words, that some of that stuff that
Yeah, what do you got in the snack box? You got some Ruffles. You got some Snyder puff pretzels. I can't quite tell what that small box is. I'm not sure it's really much of a snack box, to be honest. I think we could do better. It feels a little low rent for the president of the United States. But, you know, Ruffles got ridges, so I guess that's nice. I don't know.
Finding is very fraudulent. Therefore, maybe we have less debt than we thought of. Think of that. So a lot of things are happening, but Elon's doing an excellent job. We started with 12 guys with high IQs, and now we have 100 guys with very high IQs.
Do you think Congress has failed to do their oversight, or do you think your first administration, some of your cabinet agencies?
I think everybody failed. I think everybody failed.
And I just put out, why does Elon's financial disclosure remain secret?
Because nobody's looking at that. We're looking at all the corruption that's taken place. I mean, his financial disclosure is largely the number of shares that he's got in very public companies, and that's not secret at all. If you read that, you'll see a lot. I mean, he talks about his whole thing. I read one where it really gave a very good history of him, but basically it's a number of shares times a certain stock price.
So why is that not public?
It is public. All you have to do is read it.
So on USAID, sir, what is kind of like the message to countries that depend on humanitarian aid distributed through USAID? What is your message to those countries?
The ones that have been, the few that have been legitimate in terms of getting legitimate money, will probably put it through the State Department. It'll be handled by Marco Rubio, highly respected man, Secretary of State. There's no reason for USAID, when you look at the politicians that have been in there sucking the blood out of it, when you look at all of the fake deals, I mean, look, all you have to do is get a list of all of the things you can see by the heading. It's fake, it's fraudulent, it's probably kickbacks, where they send the money and then it gets kicked back to the person that sent it. So the ones that are good, and there are not many of them, but the ones that are good, and there are some, will probably have that be handled by Marco Rubio in the State Department.
Will they take on some of the USAID workers?
They could, if they like.
Mr. President,
Will it still be called USAID, Mr. President, or will it not?
I don't know that it's going to exist. Why would you need it? The State Department can take care of it.
Do you think the amount of spending on foreign aid will decrease also, or just the number of employees?
It should decrease, yeah. I hope it decreases.
Yeah, by how much?
When we have $36 trillion in debt, and we're taking care of countries that are very rich and sending aid to countries, in some cases, that are rich, in some cases, they're not rich. But no, it should very much decrease.
Mr. President,
but it won't be the scams that you've seen.
Another cut that NIH put out a memo on Friday night. It's going to cut $4 billion from the percentage that they pay to universities and public colleges in all those states, not foreign countries. $4 billion. Is that okay to take that off the top?
Sure. It could be okay. I mean, you have to look at the universities. Some are legit. You could also say, why are we giving money to Harvard when it's got a $50 billion endowment? $50 billion. And yet they don't use that endowment to help their students.
This is for research like biomedical research.
Well, that's fine. Look, we want to take care of research. We want to do a lot of things. But when you look at the USAID and you look at all the things and all the scams that was with,
Yeah, it got my attention in particular when I saw that USAID was funding Anna Sarkeesian and Feminist Frequency and Gamergate. That pissed me off on a personal level. I mean, that's some deep lore going back a decade. But, you know, some of us haven't forgotten.
I don't have to go through it now, but I'll get you a little list, and you'll see one after another. There were very few legitimate. It was the opposite. Usually you find something wrong, like 1 out of 100, but this is the opposite. Here, almost everything was wrong. You find very few that were good, but there were some that were good. That'll be handled by the State Department, I assume. That's not final yet, but I think the best would be Marco Rubio at the State Department. One or two more.
You're going to launch services. Is the Pentagon spending too much for launch services to space?
I think space is going to be a very important element. You know, I'm the one that came up with Space Force. I'm very proud of it. Biden tried to get out of it, and he was really rebuked by the military. I think space is going to be one of the most important things we do. It's going to be all about space, especially defense. So space is very important.
Would you accept Palestinian refugees into the United States since you're looking to other countries?
I'd have to look. I think it's a very far distance for them to travel, but I'd have to look at individual cases. But I do think that coming into the United States, we're taking a lot of people, but coming into the United States, it's a long way for them to travel. They're far away from their families and their friends and everything else. I think they'd be very happy staying in the general area with in a place that was safe, where they could be safe and lead a good life. They don't want to go back to Gaza. As I said, I've said it a lot. They only go back because they have no alternative. They don't want to go back to Gaza. So we'll see. We hope that we'll be helped by Egypt. We hope that we'll be helped by Jordan. We hope that we'll be helped by other countries. We hope that some of the, like Saudi Arabia and others, can spend some money on it. They have tremendous amounts of money. They'll spend some money on making people comfortable and safe.
One question about the Super Bowl. You're going to the game. One of the big things that you've done so far in office is cracking down on DEI. I saw that the NFL commissioner said, I think this week, that they're happy with their diversity program. What's your take on that? Would you like to see any changes there?
I don't know what the diversity program is. To be honest, I know Roger very well. I'd have to look at what he said he's happy with. He was happy also with the flag and a lot of other things that didn't work out too well. We'll have to see what he was happy with. But right now, that's, you know what the law is. The law is the law, and it changed, and it's been backed up by the U.S. Supreme Court. But we'll see. There are a lot of interesting things going on right now. I'll tell you what, there's a light over the United States. People are happy. They're more confident. The approval ratings for this country have gone through the sky. More than at any time we've had approval ratings, that there's never been anything like it. We've never seen 49 points up. 49 points up. And I think there's a light actually long beyond this country, all over the world. I've been called by other leaders. They said, sir, there's a light over our country right now. There's a light over the world. We got rid of a horrible and totally inept administration, an administration where the president wouldn't even go and do a Super Bowl interview. For 4 years, I mean, he didn't do a Super Bowl interview. I did. You'll see it in about 1 or 2 hours.
One more on the refs. Do you have an opinion, sir, on whether the referees have been throwing the games to the Chiefs all season?
I don't believe that, no. I don't believe that.
Why do you want to be chairman of the Kennedy Center Board?
Well, I think you're going to have a great game. It's two great teams. I don't know. Who knows who's going to win? You have great players, though. You have really superstars playing on both teams. So I think it's going to be a great game.
Why do you want to be chairman of the Kennedy Center Board?
Because I want to make sure it runs properly. We don't need woke at the Kennedy Center. We don't need, some of the shows were terrible. They're a disgrace that they were even put on. So I'll be there until such time as it gets to be running right.
Have you seen any shows there? How do you know they're terrible?
I didn't go. No, I got reports that were so bad I didn't want to go. There was nothing I wanted to see. Thank you very much, everybody.
Yes, Modi, sir, Modi, you're meeting Modi.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah. We're next going to watch the Trump Secret Service commercial that was played at the Super Bowl because it was pretty badass. So let me pull that up real fast. Okay, here we go. So we're going to watch this ad that was played during the Super Bowl for the Secret Service. So this is good. This video is entitled "A History of Protection." All right, let's learn a little bit more about the Secret Service.
America was founded on an idea of freedom. America's always stepped forward in time of need throughout our short but powerful history.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
I'm not 100% sure that putting Kennedy in an ad for the Secret Service is necessarily the greatest call, but okay.
We've been there for all of it.
The second plane hit the tower.
Our heroes are humble. They have an inner pride to keep this idea alive. Protectors are born, they're not made. America's Secret Service protecting this Super Bowl is asking a few more to step forward.
I mean, that's pretty, I'm feeling patriotic. I'm feeling patriotic. I don't think the Secret Service wants me. I'm a little old, a little out of shape. Yeah. All right. And then I wanted to watch. Yeah, it does sound like Sam Elliott. I don't know if it's Sam Elliott or not, but it sounds Sam Elliott adjacent. So Elon Musk has apparently said the Department of Education no longer exists. Pog. And so we're going to watch this 9-minute clip from MSNBC from 2 days ago where they're not happy with the Department of Education not existing. I'd like to take note, by the way, as I'm sure that they know, the Republicans and conservatives have been talking about eliminating the Department of Education for like the last 40 years. So the Democrats apparently are all Pikachu surprised that a Republican's actually trying to actually do it. It reminds me of when they moved the embassy to Jerusalem, right? Because presidents of both parties have been saying for like 30 years, yes, we're going to move the embassy to Jerusalem, right? And then Trump is actually like, no, I'm actually going to do it. And the media freaked out. What do you mean you're going to do it? We were just supposed to be talking about it. No one was supposed to actually do it, right? So it sort of reminds me of that. So being surprised that Trump is trying to close down the Department of Education is like you really have not been paying attention, man. I don't know how you can be surprised by that one.
Department that appears to be on the chopping block is the Department of Education. Just earlier today, Democratic members of Congress were blocked from entering the department's headquarters.
Yeah, I mean, you don't work there. You work in a different building. Did you get lost? Did you forget where the Congress building is? If you need directions, I'm sure someone could help you out. It's the big white building, big dome. Can't miss it. That's not the Congress building. Try harder.
Lawmakers had met outside to protest Donald Trump and Elon Musk's plan to abolish the department entirely, as well as attempting to seek a meeting with the department's senior leadership. Lawmakers were not only blocked by security holding the front door, but also by Department of Homeland Security police seen in multiple videos from members of Congress.
I can't imagine why, with a large group outside, the Department of Homeland Security might be putting police to guard the building. Why ever would they want to do that? It's so unclear. It's so unclear. Maybe you should have done that with the Capitol on January 6th and taken Trump's offer to provide National Guard security. Maybe you should have done that. Maybe you should have had police to protect the building. That would have been helpful. Yeah.
Lawmakers were told by security guards stationed outside that nobody had accepted a meeting and that they needed an escort in the building in order to enter the building.
The door, he says he's a federal employee. He won't tell us who gave him permission to do this. All he knows is he's going to stand here and tell the members of Congress who are elected, who vote for the funding for all of them in this building, and for the student loans, and for the Title I families, he's going to tell us that we can't come in and talk with anybody. Is that
Right. You need an appointment to come in. That's standard practice for a federal building. It would be like me just trying to show up to the Capitol and just demanding a meeting with a member of Congress. Like, it would be like me trying to walk in and just demand a meeting. I want a meeting. Now, you're going to kind of schedule it in advance. You're going to kick me out of the building? Yeah, I mean, you need an appointment. It's like, okay.
right?
Joining me now is one of the...
That poor guy outside the building. Poor guy. Whoever you are out there, I feel you, baby.
Lawmakers who tried to enter the Department of Education today, Congresswoman Jahana Hayes, Democrat of Connecticut, and a 2016 National Teacher of the Year. It's a great pleasure, Congresswoman. And, let's just get right to the bottom. Who tried to stop you, and under what authority were they acting to block members of Congress? That's the part I have to wrap my head around. Who fund the very department?
It's standard policy that you need a permission to get in the building. You need an appointment. You need an escort. The fact that why would they prevent members of Congress? Yeah, like members of the executive just wants to show up to the Congress. They're not going to need an appointment. I mean, come on.
That they're standing there blocking members from coming into the building.
Well, thank you, Michael, and it's great to be here. And that's a great question. We did not get an answer to that. The man who came out, he met us at the door. The door was locked, and then he came out and met us and said we were not allowed entry to the building. We had to be on a guest list. And when I said, well, what is your name? What is your title? All he would say is, I work for the Department of Education. Never said who he was, kept pulling out a badge and pulling it back quickly. But we said, we're members of Congress. We can come into the building. We can request a meeting. Would not even let us inside the building.
Amazing. It's just amazing. Well, it also kind of begs the question, what do you do next? I mean, this is the fourth time or so that members of Congress have been denied access to federal property. It's not a question of what do Democrats do, what do Republicans, what do members of Congress do when something like this happens? What do you think should happen next?
Well, I think that's really important. I think part of the problem is the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, has ceded all of our Article I powers to the president. And in this case, the Speaker of the House should be saying we need to respect the separation of powers. But I know that is not going to happen. So we are bracing for lawsuits. We've sent letters to the department requesting a meeting. 96 members of Congress signed on to this meeting. Outside.
I'm not sure we have space for 96 members of Congress at the same time for a meeting. I'm not sure we have a room big enough for that. Also, what kind of a meeting is that?
Groups are gearing up to file lawsuits because we read Project 2025. We know what's next. We know what's coming. And Elon Musk and Donald Trump, this whole administration is going play by play in what we saw in this Project 2025. But one thing I don't think people understand. For me, it was important to go to the department because and request this meeting.
Who is this poor guy? This poor guy needs a beer, man. Who is this poor guy? How did they recruit this poor guy to stand outside the door? Who dragooned this guy to stand outside the door, man? This poor guy, man. Whoever you are, you're a real American hero. I feel for you.
Because I'm open to, if you want to audit the department, if you want to make reforms, let's talk about it. Let's work together and see what we need to do. They don't want to do that. They want to tear everything down, just like they talked about in your last segment. And I hope people understand what that means. A lot of the things that Republicans are complaining about that they don't like about the department with curriculum and things that happen in the school, those are local issues, not decided by the Department of Education. What the department does handle is the $1.6 trillion in student loan funds, special education, making sure that students aren't discriminated against, collecting data and statistics from school, preparing educators to teach our students, running Title I programs for our lowest income communities. All of those things will be affected. And people need to understand if those programs are cut, one of two things are going to happen. If the department is cut, one of two things are going to happen. Either those programs are going to go away or their taxes are going to go up to fund their local school systems. Our children deserve better. 49 million children attend public school in this country. And for Elon Musk to come in with no planning, no forethought, and just plow through these agencies with no plan to rebuild them or what's going to happen to the people that are affected is just completely wrong. And the members of Congress are going to stand up to that.
It appears that Elon Musk, Vice President Elon Musk, I guess, I don't know, he's got some role, some official role, thinks that the Department of Education is already dead in response to Congressman Maxwell Frost's post about the DOE. He said, quote, "No such department exists in the federal government." You're an educator, a former teacher of the year, someone who knows education better than most. You talked just a moment ago about the programs that are impacted both at the federal and state level. What does this ultimately mean for parents out there and school systems across the country that now will have to scramble, to your point, to figure out where those federal dollars come? Because a block grant is not going to cut it. And we know how block grants ultimately work, right?
Yes. And that's just it. Elon Musk's children don't need public schools. They're not relying on the services that are provided in public school. Donald Trump's children don't need public schools. It's my friends and neighbors. It's the kids that I taught. 7.5 million children receive special education services, wraparound services, accommodations, IEPs, the things that they need.
Why do we need the federal government for any of those things?
Educational goals. So many of our rural communities that don't have charter schools, that wouldn't be able to take advantage of some of these voucher programs. People
I bet you they will.
That. All of those children will be denied a public education. When we had our committee hearing yesterday, the chairman said 1 million students access vouchers for private charter schools. They want to take all this money from the Department of Education and put it into voucher programs. There are not enough spaces for all of the children. What are we going to do with all of these?
You know, if suddenly there were a big pile of that doesn't really make sense, right? There's not enough space for the kids in private charter schools. You know what normally happens if suddenly there's a big pile of money that wasn't previously there? Oh, geez, I have this big pile of money. I'd really like to give it to some charter schools. It's unfortunate there aren't any charter schools for me to give this big pile of money to. Right? Everyone knows what the next thing that happens is, right? Hey, I like a big pile of money. I'd like to create a charter school. 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 Right? It's like, oh, there are not enough charter schools. Okay. Well, let's say that there's a big pile of money for charter schools, and let's see if there's enough charter schools then. I bet you there will be.
These kids, and people really need to think about that. A nation that doesn't invest in their children, that doesn't prepare them to be global citizens, to meet the workforce, we are going to lose a whole generation of kids. And it's not just the Department of Education. They're going after funding for Head Start and HHS. I don't understand this fascination or fixation on pulling money back that we use as resources for our children. And they talk about government efficiency. They talk about the budget. They're not going to the top for all of those big ticket items, like military contractors, like closing some of the tax loopholes that they gave to billionaires. They're taking money from the most vulnerable children, from our global aid program.
The Democrats seem to think that any tax break is spending, which it's not the same thing. So I do take exception to her saying tax loopholes. First of all, there are no loopholes. There are only laws. It's not a loophole when you create it on purpose, right? If you are purposefully doing it, it's certainly not a loophole. It's just that's what I'm trying to do. And second of all, giving people their money back is not the same thing as spending.
A fraction of the budget that really helps invest in the future of this country. And parents need to think about that. Democrat parents, Republican parents, grandparents, everyone needs to understand exactly what this means if the federal government, the Department of Education, is stripped and those services are lost. Before and after school programs, lunch programs, services for students with special needs, all of our resources that schools have, our sports programs, our music programs, all of those things gone. Districts are going to have to make tough decisions about what they can keep, and our kids will have the bare minimum in schools, and teachers will not be prepared.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Congresswoman.
Well, that was a lot of stupid that I can't really fully deal with it because it's just a big pile of stupid. Here's a link where apparently Brandon Herrera stole McDonald's from one of the Trump children. Okay. Brandon, what did you do? You stole Donald Trump Jr.'s McDonald's. Okay, tell me more about how you stole Donald Trump Jr.'s McDonald's.
Brandon and I were sitting in the lobby, and Brandon goes to get his McDonald's. And so Junior's assistant comes out, and he's like, oh, is Brandon leaving? I was like, no, he's grabbing his McDonald's. He's like, oh, I'm grabbing McDonald's for Junior. I was like, okay, cool.
He was like, yeah, Junior just really wanted some McDonald's.
Yeah, he's like, he just wanted some McDonald's for him and his friend, like, whatever. And Brandon stole fucking Trump Jr.'s McDonald's.
Oh, dude. Don, I am so sorry. God.
Because we did find out, Cody's like, wait, what? Because I guess Brandon, you walked by Cody's like, good night. And then the sister was like, fuck, someone stole her McDonald's.
Guilty. Because like I went out to go fucking be, my thing said like, okay, your Uber is here. Like, okay, cool. Like, just grab it. Yeah, grab. Who else is going to be here ordering McDonald's at this hour of night? Come on. Wow. And it turns out Don Jr.
Brandon and I were.
Well, Brandon Herrera is probably not going to be the new ATF director anymore, I think. Lol. So that's a pile of dumb. What else were we going to react to? Oh yeah, we were going to do the Karen Reed interview. All right, so let's do Karen Reed interview that happened last night. The Karen Reed interview after the Super Bowl. Okay. Let's see. Now I have to find it. Is it only this 5-minute clip? No, I want the whole thing. All right, now I have to find the interview. Hold on. Okay, give me a second. Let's see. Upload. This will be today. Miss Mandy Rax, you sent one. No, you gave me the John. We'll do this one where Kennedy reacts to the spending issues. So we'll do this one first while we're trying to figure out where the Karen Reed interview is. So let's watch the first 15 minutes of this and we'll give it a shot.
Mr. President.
Senator from Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. President. I yield 30 minutes of my post-cloture debate time on the vote nomination to Senator Merkley and 30 minutes of my post-cloture debate time on the vote nomination to Senator Schumer.
The senator has that right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. President. The senator from Louisiana. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I have 8 requests for committees to meet during today's session of the Senate. They have the approval of the majority and minority leaders. Duly noted. Thank you, Mr. President. With me today is one of my colleagues from my Senate office, Mr. James Shea. He is one of my right-hand people and does great work, and I'm honored that he could join me today. Gosh, I don't know where to begin. I've been in the Senate for 8 years. In dog years, that's 56 years. And it feels like 56 years. I've learned a lot, met a lot of interesting people. You know, before I got here, everybody told me about the Washington bubble. And I said, you know, how serious could they be? Well, it's true. There is a Washington bubble. This place is different. It's in its own way, sometimes disappointing, sometimes refreshing. It is deeply weird. For one thing, common sense is illegal in Washington. It's illegal. For another thing, I've discovered that this is a town of very frustrated ex-class presidents. And there's a Washington way of doing things. And when things aren't done that way, when somebody challenges the status quo, many, not all, but many of these frustrated ex-class presidents in Washington, on the Hill and otherwise, they get excited, not in a good way. They can't get their mind around doing anything other than the Washington way. Some of them, particularly in the media, they go almost catatonic, or the exact opposite. They foam at the mouth, and they really get upset. They can make a Valium nervous. It's like the world, we're not doing things the way we've always done them, and the world's going to spin off its axis. I want to try to put in perspective what many of my Democratic friends have been talking about today. They're very, very, very upset at President Trump. And they're very, very, very upset at Elon Musk. President Trump ran for president on a number of issues. One of the issues he ran on, he said it almost every day. He said, if you elect me president, I'm going to go through the entire budget and review all the spending, line by line. If I heard him say that once, I heard him say it 1,000 times. And that's what he's been doing. He went out and appointed, through an executive order, Elon Musk, who some people like him, some don't, but he's not a dummy. He's a very successful business person. He's got a top secret security clearance. President Trump issued an executive order, and he turned to Mr. Musk, and he said, Mr. Musk, I want you to do for me what I said I was going to do in the election. I want you to go through all the spending, line by line. Now, let me ask you something, Mr. President. How are you going to review the spending without reviewing the spending? How are you going to audit?
Yeah, this is the thing, right? It's like, again, it reminds me of the fact like when they moved the embassy to Jerusalem. It's like, how do you move the embassy without moving the embassy? Apparently, the answer to that question was you just keep talking about doing it, but no one ever actually does it. No one ever actually expects you to do the thing. You keep talking about closing the Department of Education, but you never actually do it. All right? It's like no one ever expects you to actually do anything. They just want you to talk about the problem. They don't actually want you to work the problem. Yeah.
The spending by an agency without auditing the agency.
Also, I want McDonald's now. So curse you for putting that thought in my head. I suppose I should support my favorite McDonald's employee by getting some fries. So in honor of my favorite McDonald's employee, maybe I'll get some McDonald's fries today.
That's what I mean when I say common sense is illegal in Washington, D.C. That's what Mr. Musk is doing. He's put together a crackerjack team, and they're going through everybody's spending line by line, item by item. And my Democratic colleagues are very, very, very upset. And they've been very eloquent. They've talked about the process, and President Trump's executive order supposedly violates the Constitution. And they've accused Mr. Musk of having conflicts of interest. And so I've heard people say he's sitting over there with a notepad, copying down everybody's Social Security number, and he's going to go use it to make money. I mean, people in this town, not just my Democratic colleagues, they're really upset. They've never said anybody question their spending. But that's what Mr. Musk is doing. But I've listened. This has been going on for a week. People have been screaming like they're part of a prison riot. Oh, my God, look at what Musk is doing. He's looking at the spending. And I've listened to people talk about the process and debate whether it's constitutional and discuss how many lawyers can dance on the head of a pin. But you know what? I haven't heard one single person who's upset with President Trump or Mr. Musk talk about what he's found. They don't want to talk about the spending porn, the waste of taxpayer money that he's found. I mean, that's the point of all this. I tell you who is interested. The American people. The people in America who get up every day and go to work and obey the law and pay their taxes and try to educate their kids and try to do the right thing by their kids and try to save a little money for retirement, and have had to live through 20% inflation under President Biden. They understand what Musk is doing. They understand spending porn and wasting taxpayer money. Now, Mr. Musk started with the USAID. That handles a lot of foreign aid for America. American people are very generous. In our country, when you're homeless, we'll house you. When you're hungry, we'll feed you. In our country, when you're too poor to be sick, we'll pay for your doctor. And we send a lot of money overseas to help our world's neighbors. And the USAID is in charge, in large part, of that. But I'll tell you what Mr. Musk discovered. I find it fascinating. He discovered that the American taxpayers are giving money to Afghanistan. He found that we are giving money to Yemen. He found that we are giving money to Syria. I didn't know that. Some of our foreign aid is going to Yemen, Afghanistan, Syria. He found that the USAID has 10,000 people, employees, And every year they give away $40 billion. Mr. Musk also found, and I'm not saying that all of this money is wasteful. I'm not. Some of this money, I'm sure, does some good. That's why Secretary Rubio is going to revamp the department and separate the good from the bad. But this is the kind of stuff Mr. Musk found. He found that the USAID gave money to support electric vehicles in Vietnam. Our money, taxpayer money. He found that USAID gave money to a transgender clinic in India. I didn't know that. I bet you the American people didn't know that. He found that the USAID gave $1.5 million to a Serbian LGBTQ group called Grupa Izladaji. I probably mispronounced that. My apologies. Anyway, they got $1.5 million to, quote, advance diversity, equity, inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and business communities.
Serbian LGBTQ diversity. Okay. Well, that's novel. Are we doing federal aid spending by Mad Libs? Because it sounds like we are. You know, give me a country, give me a group, give me an adjective, give me a noun. Oh, Serbian LGBTQ. Okay, diversity. That's the right combination. Okay, yeah.
What else did Mr. Musk found that my colleagues don't want to talk about? Well, he reviewed a study and then went and checked it. The study was done by the Middle East Forum. They found that USAID spent $164 million to support radical organizations around the world. We're not talking Cub Scout troops here. We're talking about radical organizations around the world. They gave $122 million of that to groups aligned with foreign terrorist organizations.
That sounds like a bad idea.
Our taxpayer money.
Yeah, that sounds like a bad spend.
According to Mr. Musk, the USAID has given millions of dollars to, quote, organizations in Gaza controlled by Hamas. Why aren't my colleagues talking about that? Recipients of the money, they found, have, quote, called for their lands to be cleansed from the impurity of Jews. That's who we're giving foreign aid to.
That doesn't sound good.
What else? I'm not going to spend my whole time talking about this, but nobody else is talking about it. They're just talking about the process and Mr. Musk, and he's a mean guy, and he shouldn't be looking at our spending. Well, he is. And I kind of find what he's found out interesting. He found that we gave $2 million, USAID did, for sex changes in Guatemala. He found that we gave $20 million to produce a new Sesame Street show in Iraq. He found that we gave $4.5 million of taxpayer money to combat disinformation in Kazakhstan. He found that we gave $10 million, USAID did, of meals to an al-Qaeda-linked terrorist group called the Nusra Front. Mr. Musk found that we gave $7.9 million of taxpayer money to a project that would teach Sri Lankan journalists to avoid binary gendered language. The USAID took $8 million and gave it to a bunch of journalists in Sri Lanka to teach them how to avoid binary gendered language. I don't know what the hell binary gendered language is. I think I do. You think most taxpayers would support that? Why aren't we talking about that? The USAID gave $1.5 million to promote LGBT advocacy in Jamaica. They gave $1.5 million to rebuild the Cuban media ecosystem. They gave $1.5 million for, quote, art for inclusion of people with disabilities in Belarus. Another $3.9 million for LGBT causes in Macedonia. $8.3 million for equity and inclusion education in Nepal. I could go all night.
I think that will summarize it up. So basically, a lot of money's being wasted and spent, and I think we all knew all those things. So no big surprises there. Well, let's now watch this Karen Read interview. It looks like it was posted in 3 parts, so we'll have to do this piece by piece, but that's okay. We'll watch this Karen Read interview. That was happening. We'll see what's going on with that.
We spent several hours with Karen Read over 2 days, with and without her attorneys. We asked for the interview and were somewhat surprised she said yes. Read tells me she withdrew to New Hampshire for 2 months after her first trial. She's been preparing for round 2 ever since.
I have nothing to hide. My life is in the balance, and it shouldn't be.
It is unusual for someone who's accused of murder to do this interview or others.
I've seen the more information the public has, the more they understand what we already know.
Good to see you.
We first met Karen Read at a hotel in the Seaport. She's logged 150 nights here since her legal fight began. It's the command center for her defense, and she is one of the commanders.
Nice photograph.
It's the command center for her defense, and
I just have to say, that's a good picture. That's a good picture, man. Props.
She is one of the commanders.
When we get new information, we just divide and conquer, and we can break it down really fast.
On the road, we drove by the financial services firm where she worked for 15 years before her arrest.
Little did I know, I'd reconnect with someone I had dated nearly 20 years earlier, and then he would be tragically killed, murdered, and I've been framed for it.
We appreciate you guys coming here. Read's LA-based lawyer Alan Jackson joined her 3 years to the date of John O'Keefe's death. How much do you think about him?
I think about him in terms of his final days, his final weeks. I mean, we have his cell phone, which a cell phone to anyone is like a diary. The time that I spent with John, 2 years, it's now been 3 since he's gone. And I have very mixed feelings, you know, when I look back on John, because I see a lot of poor decisions that were all precursors to his death.
Poor decisions by whom?
By both of us. Just drinking, being around the wrong people is chief among them.
Read admits drinking in the hours before O'Keefe was found unresponsive outside 34 Fairview Road in Canton.
She just repeated the phrase over and over again, I hit him, I hit him.
Multiple first responders testified that Read initially said herself she hit O'Keefe with her SUV. Read says she only questioned if she could have hit him.
Yeah, I went through every possibility. He was near the road and he was dying. And I didn't think he was purposely put in that place. It did not cross my mind for several days that they did this to John. That John was treated like a piece of garbage.
When Read says they, she is referring to people who were gathered inside 34 Fairview. If John was beaten up and attacked in that house, who did it?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. And it's not for us to know. Somebody other than Karen is responsible for that, for the killing of John.
What is the one thing in this case you believe proves your innocence?
John's body. No bruise. 6,000 pound, full size.
Yeah, that's a pretty good piece of evidence, right? I mean, we've discussed that before. Like, okay, this 6,000 pound car runs him over at 25 miles an hour, causes him to apparently pirouette, according to the according to the never wrong Trooper Paul, pirouette throughout the air and like land on the ground. And this he flies through the ground, flies through the air. He's projected through the air by this 6,000 pound car. No bruising, no broken bones. Sure. Yeah, that sounds plausible.
His SUV, not a bruise on his body, not a fracture.
Yeah, that's
below his head.
If you were framed
flying through the air, having been hit by 6,000 pounds, landing on the ground, no bruising, no broken bones. Sure.
Who's calling the shots?
I don't know the interconnections, the interpersonal relationships among these people. I have a strong personal opinion that what has motivated this persecution of me is power.
I'm declaring a mistrial in this case.
Reed says her initial thought of going through a second trial was a gut punch, but now she sees it as more time to prepare. She's talking now. Will she talk then?
I'm not afraid of taking the stand, and I'm clearly not afraid of speaking, but they're playing hardball. So we'll weigh the pros and cons, and we'll make another second game time decision.
Who would you rather face? Is it Adam Lally, who we saw in the first trial, or is it Hank Brennan?
I don't care who I face. I have the truth. I have the best attorneys. Do your worst.
One of the possible outcomes here could be a conviction. That could be prison time. How much have you thought about that?
I think about it every day, about prison time, and it doesn't frighten me the way it did 3 years ago.
Reed sold her Mansfield home in November to help pay her estimated $5 million in legal fees. She lives with her parents, who are a part of an inner circle that numbers about 10. Supporters have donated $750,000 to her defense fund.
Yeah.
And she says people routinely pick up her meals.
I don't know the last time I've done anything but tip a waiter. And that generosity, that's all helping fuel this. It helps me spiritually, and it helps me financially.
She's well aware not everyone has her back. John O'Keefe's family is convinced she's a killer and have filed a wrongful death lawsuit against her. Do you feel the presence of the O'Keefe family behind you in court?
I honestly, I almost look through them. Paul sitting there doesn't impact me, it doesn't bother me. That's John's brother. They've attempted to send me messages, and as soon as I see the name comes up, I just delete it.
Online, Reed is bombarded by love and hate. Yes, she pays attention. This case has become your identity. Is that for the rest of your life? Or will one day you just want to put it all behind you?
I don't think I can, even if I wanted to, and I'm okay with that.
We asked the Norfolk DA's office if we could profile and interview Special Prosecutor Hank Brennan. That request was declined.
I bet it was. All right, so let's see part 2 of this interview. This is good shit. Oh, yes, there's the man himself. Trooper Proctor, the man himself, our hero. I can be your hero, baby. I can wash away your tears. You are my everything.
Well, as we have mentioned this morning, Massachusetts State Trooper Michael Proctor is expected back at State Police headquarters this morning to continue a disciplinary hearing that could lead to his termination.
Proctor was suspended in July for conduct revealed during the Karen Reed trial. This morning, we've been bringing you Ted Daniels' one-on-one interview with Karen Reed. She was more than willing to talk about Proctor and others.
What troubles me is how evil people are.
We covered a lot of ground with Karen Reed, including those who want her in prison. The Norfolk DA, state police working for the DA, and specifically Trooper Michael Proctor. The detective zeroed in on Reed within hours of John O'Keefe's death. Proctor has testified that's where the evidence, including Reed's cracked taillight, took him.
Yes, she's a babe.
weird Fall River accent, though.
During Reed's first trial, Proctor's personal feelings for Reed were exposed in his personal text messages. What was it like to be there in court and listen to all those texts?
Proctor was just letting the public know what I've known about Michael Proctor, who he really is. Nothing Michael Proctor texted and admitted out loud in court about me would ever offend me.
Your figures of speech include the following. She's a bitch.
Objection.
Is that right?
Yes.
You spent hours having him read those out loud. I'm sure that was done by design.
It was. Everything that we did in that cross-examination of Michael Proctor was done by design.
There was an effort to indict Reed on new witness intimidation charges last March. It failed. Reed says even people around her were under scrutiny.
Our drivers have been approached by the state police, had very close friends, had their cell phone records subpoenaed for an indictment that never happened.
Have you ever been followed?
I don't know. My eyes are akimbo all the time. I look at law enforcement differently.
Bet you do.
More warily.
How do you know you're being tracked?
I know from affidavits from the state police at the Norfolk DA's office. They knew what flight I was on, they knew when I landed, they knew when I came back, and it's disturbing. It's invasive, and it's desperate.
All right, Ted Daniel joining us now for his fascinating interview. Ted, there, she just called the state police desperate. Others may use that word to apply to her, and seeing she didn't get an acquittal the first time around. But why do you think it is she agreed to do this interview?
She comes across as very smart and analytical, that every move that they're making, she's a part of, and it's calculated. I think she says to me she has nothing to hide and wants to get her message out. I would expect that, they went over the pros and the cons of this. With a trial fast approaching, and in the end, they thought it was something that they wanted to do. It's not the first time that she's gone on in a segment like this. She did a couple national interviews, and I think that this was something that, I reached out to her team and heard back within a couple of days.
I actually have two questions for you. What is she like off camera, too? Same way?
Yeah, pretty much the same. You get the feeling, she's always on the phone or she's always making plans. She's, when we met her, the day that we met her, she was going to meet with her lawyer, Alan Jackson, she said, because she had a private investigator hunting down a new lead, and they were going to analyze and go over what information that was provided to them. So, yeah, she's very cordial, very nice person, but when you look at all in this totality here, these are some really serious charges against her, and she's got a tough road.
Yeah.
So you reached out to the DA's office as well.
Yeah, we wanted to give equal time to the DA's side of this. So it's the new prosecutor. Adam Lally did the first trial, and now Hank Brennan was appointed a special prosecutor. He's long known defense lawyer. I used to speak
the Whitey Bulger case.
Yeah, and I used to speak to Hank about other stories. So we made a request. We said, hey, we'd like to profile Hank and give him sort of an on-camera interview, and they declined that request. And I get it. There are some stipulations that the DA and the prosecutor has to follow in terms of out-of-court discussion. I did say, hey, I realize in my email, I said, I realize there may be some things that have to be left off the table. We were fine with that with them, but unfortunately it didn't happen.
You had talked about this in the piece that aired last night, and she has talked to, as you mentioned, to you and to other outlets. The question is, will she take the stand now in the second trial? And she mentioned, well, that'll be a game time decision. What's your gut telling you on that?
I think she probably won't. As rare as it is for her to do all these interviews with us, I think would be even more rare for her to take the stand. But one of the things that the new special prosecutor is trying to do is take all the statements that she's made and find contradictions. Before this story even aired, we got a court order at this station saying the DA's office wants all the raw interview. They want everything, and my notes. So the DA's office has been doing that to everyone that she's spoken with, because they want to say, hey, there's this inconsistency there, or she said this. during this interview, said something different during another interview. So it was surprising, though, that we got it 14 hours after the promo aired, and the story hadn't even gone on TV yet. Right.
Yeah, it's expected almost too, but it's something that so many eyes are going to be watching. I mean, you did an incredible piece on that story as well, and yeah, I'm looking forward to see what happens.
There will be all right, and one more video in this series we'll watch.
More now from Boston 25's one-on-one interview with Karen Read. We've known about a federal probe tied to Read's allegations of a police cover-up in this case for years.
Feds turned over thousands of pages of evidence to both sides before the first trial. And just last week, new U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts Leah Foley would not say where the investigation stands.
Here again is Ted Daniel with that layer to this case.
I picture every day that they're working on framing me.
It's no secret. Karen Read believes she's being railroaded, and critical aspects of her defense have come gift-wrapped from the feds.
All accounts, he didn't do anything wrong. She's a whack job.
State Trooper Michael Proctor's personal text messages, butt dials, and discarded phones.
Did you pull the SIM card out of your phone, Mr. Higgins?
Independent scientists who testified that John O'Keefe's injuries were not from an SUV.
The theory of the case is a car accident. The federal materials included a report that said there wasn't a car accident. That's 95% of the case.
The feds devoted a lot of time and resources investigating what happened here. We are now years removed from that, and there's been no action taken.
Well, I don't know that there's been no action taken.
But no indictments?
No indictments.
25 Investigates has learned the Norfolk DA's office has communicated with the U.S. Attorney's Office about this case since Read's mistrial in July. The DA's office denied our public records requests for any emails or letters, citing in part a federal protective order. Do you expect that having a new head of the U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston will change anything?
I can say that I was very, very happy with what they did and what they disclosed, trying to get the truth out previously, and I hope Ms. Foley does the same thing. I'm looking forward to her continuing the investigation. I hope she does.
As for Michael Proctor, he's scheduled to have a disciplinary hearing tomorrow to determine his future with state police. Karen Read has a lot to say about Proctor. Ted will join the Boston 25 Morning News team tomorrow at 7:15 with that portion of his interview.
All right, so apparently maybe tonight we get a Proctor interview. So maybe there's something else tonight, but we've watched all 3 clips relating to this that are posted on the channel for now. So that's all there is there. And then there's this article which notes that the hearing is set to pick up on today. So, but there's not going to be any video relating to that hearing, I'm pretty sure. So just waiting for that to all resolve. We'll see how it all goes. All right. Well, I guess that will finish our morning stream until the White House does something this afternoon, which I'm sure they will. And that will probably take us through everything we have to cover for now. Yeah. So I guess we'll go ahead and sign off for now, and perhaps we'll be on later today with some more stuff. As always, if there's things that you want us to respond to or react to, or there's content you like us to do, you can always drop it on our Discord. The Discord is the best place to drop that because it allows everyone to comment on it and see what, looks good and stuff like that. So if you have links you want us to respond to, the best place to do that is on the Discord, which of course you can find on our link tree, which is on our channel about page and everywhere else. So you can do that, and I will sign off for now, but I will send you somewhere. Let's see if there's someone streaming, and I'll send you wherever there's to go. And thank you for the 425 of you who are currently watching. I do appreciate you being here and spending time with me. Let's see. Recovery Addict to streaming. There's a discussion later tonight with Runkle the Bailey at 5 o'clock. I'll send you over that way so you can like the video and stuff like that. All right. I'll see you guys a little bit later. Until later, my friends, I hope all's well for now. Cheers, my friends, for now, and goodbye.